If you go back to the beginning of a season you chose, there's usually a moment that started it all. Something didn't fit, something felt misaligned, or something new started pulling at you. And then you moved. You stepped into something, left something, started something, shifted direction. And with that move, whether you said it out loud or not, you attached a timeline. Not just how long it would take, but what it would feel like when it started to work. We all do this. We try to make the unknown manageable. And in the beginning of a season, there's usually energy, movement. Even if it's uncomfortable, there's still a sense of direction. Then the middle shows up, and the middle is different. The momentum slows. The clarity you felt at the beginning doesn't feel as accessible. It didn't disappear, it's just harder to hold on to when nothing around you is confirming it. And then the timeline that you had in your head, well, that starts to drift. First, it's just, why is this taking so long? But over time, that question turns into, what does it say about me that it's taking this long? That's the turn. Nothing necessarily changed around you, but the length of it starts to feel like evidence. Evidence that maybe you misread something, that maybe you moved too quickly, that maybe you stepped into something that wasn't actually meant for you. You start to see this in small ways. You pause before answering when someone asks how things are going. You do the math in your head before you say how long it's been. You adjust the story, because the honest version is harder to say out loud. If you go back to the beginning of the season you chose, there's usually a moment that started it all. Something didn't fit anymore. Something felt misaligned, or something new started to pull at you. Then you moved. You stepped into something, left something, started something, shifted direction. And with that move, whether you said it out loud or not, you attached a timeline. Not just how long it would take, but what it would feel like when it started to work. We all do this. We try to make the unknown manageable. And in the beginning of a season, there's usually energy, movement. Even if it's uncomfortable, there's still a sense of direction. Then the middle shows up, and the middle is different. The momentum slows. The clarity you felt at the beginning doesn't feel as accessible. It didn't disappear, it's just harder to hold when nothing around you is confirming it. And the timeline that you had in your head, well, that starts to drift. At first, it's, why is this taking so long? But over time, that question turns into, what does this say about me that it's taking this long? That's the turn. Nothing necessarily changed around you, but the length of it starts to feel like evidence. Evidence that maybe you misread something, that maybe you moved too quickly, that maybe you stepped into something that wasn't actually meant for you. You start to see this in a couple of small ways. You pause before answering when someone asks, how are things going? Or you do the math in your head before you say how long it's been. You adjust the story, because the honest version is harder to say out loud. And then comes the thought. Maybe I was wrong about myself. There's a place in every distillery where the barrels go after they're filled. It's called a Rickhouse. It's where the whiskey is aged, stacked in barrels and in rows, and left for seasons at a time. If you've ever stepped into a Rickhouse, the first thing you notice is the light, or more accurately, the lack of it. It's not completely dark, but it's dim, like the light has been filtered through time. The barrels are stacked higher than you would expect, row after row. And it's quiet in a way that feels intentional, even though no one told you to be quiet. And then you feel the air. Humidity, temperature, stillness. In the summer, the heat pushes the spirit in the barrels outward, expanding deeper into the wood and drawing out what the barrel has been holding. In the winter, it contracts, pulling back in and taking something new with it. Expansion, contraction, over and over, season after season. And when you're standing in the Rickhouse, you realize something. Whatever's happening in those barrels isn't happening on anyone's timeline. The distiller doesn't stand at the door and decide when a barrel is ready. The distiller waits and trusts that the process knows something that the calendar doesn't. People who aren't into whiskey don't always realize that before whiskey ever goes into a barrel, it's clear. I mean, completely clear. They call it white dog. No color, no complexity, no depth, just raw spirit. Functional, but unformed. Before the spirit ever goes in, the inside of the barrel has already been prepared. The wood inside the barrel has been charred with fire. That char becomes the filter that draws out what doesn't belong and release what does. The same thing happens to us in a long season. Things tend to get filtered out. The timelines that you set that were never really yours to set. The definitions of success you inherited without questioning. The version of yourself you thought was true about you. The char doesn't remove identity from the spirit, and neither does this season for you. It reveals it. Now, if the whiskey could speak, somewhere in the middle of that season, it might say something like, I used to be clear. I knew exactly what I was. And now, I don't recognize what I'm becoming. I can't see what's being added. I can't see what's being taken away. I just know that I'm not what I was. And I don't know if that's the process working or if something is going wrong. That's the voice in the middle of a season. There are seasons where we are the distiller. We're making decisions, setting directions, applying the heat. And then there are seasons that feel nothing like that. Seasons where we made the move, we set the direction, and we stepped in with intention. But once the barrel is sealed, we become the whiskey. We're not driving this anymore. We're inside. Some of you were here for season 2. That's when this season started for us. My wife had stepped into a career change. Not casually, not reactively. She had clarity about the direction. We had talked about it, and there was just a sense that something needed to shift. And like most of us, we had a timeline in mind. A few months, get through the transition, find the next thing, and let's move forward. That was 15 months ago. And I don't pretend that 15 months felt like the plan. There were conversations about money, questions about what was next, and that tension that shows up when something takes longer than you thought it would. And then the questions. What does this say about us? About the decision? About whether we read this right? She could have left the barrel at any point. Month 3, month 6, month 10. No one would have blamed her. But she stayed. And the choice to stay was repeated every month for the past 15 months. So about 90 days ago, a consulting opportunity appeared for her. It wasn't something that she was looking for, but something that just showed up. An opportunity she was ready for in a way she would not have been ready for a year earlier. Not just ready to show up and do the work, but ready to see herself clearly inside it. It's something she's actually great at. where she brings real value and the kind of work that fits who she is, not just what she's capable of. And out of that 90 days came something that she's building. Her own consulting practice. And there's a new excitement now that wasn't there at the beginning, and all because the season didn't end. 15 months in the barrel wasn't wasted. And what's emerging isn't a different version of her. It's a truer one. One that's more clear, and one that she couldn't have gotten any earlier. Now here's what I've been sitting with as I've watched the season unfold, and with talking to leaders who are navigating seasons just like these. Some of us choose the season that we're in. We made the move. We stepped in with intention, and we can step back out if we decide it's taking long enough. But if we do, we risk trading transformation for relief. We get the comfort of movement without the formation the season was meant to provide. And we might miss the moving closer to what we're actually built for. Those of us who are in seasons that we didn't choose, the leadership crisis that arrived without permission, an organization that stopped responding the way it used to, a market shift, a health season, something that put us in the barrel before we had a say in it. You can't unchoose those seasons either. The invitation isn't really about staying or leaving. It's about stopping the fight long enough to let the process finish. Because in both kinds of seasons, the barrel is doing something. Whether you choose it or not, whether you can leave it or not, the question underneath is the same. Are you going to trust what's happening inside, or spend the season fighting the process instead of receiving it? Maybe it was a career change like ours. Maybe it's a leadership season where nothing is moving the way you thought it would, and the plateau has started to feel like a reflection of you. Maybe it's a transition you stepped into with a clear sense of direction that the middle has made it harder to hold on to. Maybe it's a season you didn't choose at all, and the length of it is starting to feel less like formation and more like punishment. Maybe it's a quieter than that. Just a long season where the question underneath everything has slowly become, am I still what I thought I was? You have a version of this. It probably doesn't look like ours, but you might know exactly what I'm talking about. Something starts to happen in a long season that's worth naming. The timeline becomes the measure. And when the timeline becomes the measure, identity starts to get pulled into the verdict. If it's taking this long, something must be off with my judgment, my instincts, my ability to read a situation. But sometimes what it looks like delay is something that just isn't finished yet. The char is still working, the wood is still giving, and the season is still doing what the season came to do. And what I keep learning from watching a 15-month season unfold right next to me is that the question underneath a long season isn't always, how do I get through this faster? Sometimes it's closer to, what is the season making possible that nothing else could? Because the confidence my wife is stepping into now, the clarity about who she is and what she's built to do, well, that didn't come from the consulting opportunity. It was revealed by it. It formed in the 15 months that felt too long until they didn't. If you've ever been to a whiskey tasting, you write down what stood out. Here are my tasting notes from today. Yours might be different. 1. The question shifts from, why is this taking so long, to, what does this say about me? And that shift is worth noticing. Those aren't the same question. The first one is about timing. The second one is about identity. And when identity enters the room, the season stops feeling like a situation and starts feeling like a verdict. It isn't one. But it can feel that way when the timeline has stretched past what you told yourself it would. Notice when you've made that shift, because the question you're actually asking changes everything about how you hear the answer. 2, the timeline was something that you set. The season didn't agree to it. We attach timelines to seasons because the unknown feels more manageable that way. But the season doesn't know your timeline. It just knows its work. And releasing the timeline doesn't release the direction. It means trusting the process more than the calendar. What would it feel like to give the season permission to take as long as it needs? 3, the Char filters what it doesn't belong, so what does can surface. In a long season, something is being filtered. The noise, the performance, the version of yourself built for someone else's definition of success. You might not be able to see it yet, but the filtering is happening. And what's left, when it's done, tends to be closer to what was always true than anything you started with. And the last note, can I trust myself, is not the same as I can't be trusted. One is a question we're sitting with. The other is a verdict on the season that doesn't have authority to deliver. The doubt that surfaces in a long season isn't evidence of bad judgment. It might just be evidence that something real is being formed. If you need more time with these thoughts, there's a more in-depth version of these tasting notes on our website. No login is required. Just a space to go further if today stirred something in you. The season is longer than you said it would be. The question has turned inward. You entered this as the distiller. You made the move, set the direction, stepped in with intention. And then the barrel is sealed. And now you're the whiskey. Maybe you can leave, maybe you can't. But either way, the barrel is doing something. And the transformation you were after, the reason you entered in the first place, or the thing that is in this unchosen season is making possible, that only finishes if you stop fighting the process long enough to receive it. So stay in the barrel. And as you're somewhere in your season, remember, clarity isn't found. It's crafted. Thanks for listening to Crafted Clarity. If you're a leader wrestling with the tension between success and significance, or if you're trying to align your work with a deeper calling, I'd love to connect with you. If your organization is facing questions about strategy, whether it's alignment, ROI, or building confidence in your team, this is the work we do every day at iBrand. And if you walk this journey yourself, or maybe you're right in the middle of it, I'd love to hear your story and maybe even share it here on the podcast. You can find me at craftedclarity.net.